Hey there. You're listening to True Story No Cap. Real stories, no exaggeration, no lies. Just the raw, unfiltered moments life throws our way. Relax, lean back, and let's get started. There exists a special kind of human bond called male friendship. Its true essence can only be grasped by those who have experienced its unshakable strength and appeal firsthand. For a man, such a friend is often closer than a brother, dearer than blood ties. Genuine male friendship is not born of nothing and does not fade from minor troubles. Once it takes root, it often lasts a lifetime, overcoming the trials of time and distance. It was precisely such a loyal friend that Alex became for Michael, a boy 2 years his junior, from a disadvantaged background. His parents were often drunk, leaving the boy and his two tiny sisters to their own devices. Eventually, the children were taken to a state orphanage, from which Alex managed to escape after only a couple of weeks. But even this short period was enough. His parents, as if forgetting about their children, hastily changed their address. All sorts of rumors circulated about the reasons for their sudden disappearance. The teenager flatly refused to return to the orphanage. He was barely 14 at the time. He settled in his empty parental home, deciding to start an adult, independent life. The kids who had known him almost from birth supported him as best they could. They brought him warm jackets and food from their homes. For a long time, they managed to hide the fact of his escape from the children's home. But, as is usually the case, everything secret sooner or later becomes known. The guardianship authorities took the boy back to the orphanage. Michael then managed to persuade his parents to help his childhood friend. His father, a former military man, managed to find distant relatives willing to formalize guardianship over the boy, and Michael's mother, a lawyer by profession, took on the paperwork. From then on, Michael and Alex became more than just friends. People say of such friends, they'd go through fire and water together. Michael's parents, of course, were not thrilled with their son's friend, but they did not voice their concerns aloud. Michael owed his life to his friend. One day, walking by the river, they found themselves on ice that had already thawed considerably but still seemed solid. Taller and heavier, Michael tried to avoid places where water was showing through. However, this did not save him. The large guy in his heavy father's sheepskin coat and felt boots instantly fell through. Fortunately, he managed to surface and grab the edge of the ice hole. His clothes quickly got soaked, dragging him down. His legs began to cramp. To his luck, Alex did not lose his head. They say that in critical moments a person's hidden reserves open up. This was probably just such a case. Thin and short, Alex grabbed Michael by the collar of his sheepskin coat and pulled him up. Later, he himself couldn't explain how he managed to pull out his tall friend in waterlogged clothes. Fear multiplied his strength tenfold, and he not only pulled his comrade out but also dragged him several meters away from the dangerous ice hole. The boys collapsed onto the snow, trying to catch their breath. A few minutes later, Alex raised his head and saw that Michael was crying, smearing snow and blood from a scrape he got when he fell across his face. "Michael, what's wrong? Did you break something?" He, just a boy himself, was trembling either from the cold or from what he had just experienced. "What? A wound? It's just a scratch. Don't cry. You're a man. Did you finally drown Dad's felt boots?" Michael croaked. "He's had them since the army, some kind of trophy. He'll kill me." "He'll kill you, yeah, but don't whine. He won't kill you. Come to my place, you'll dry off. Otherwise, he'll definitely kill both me and you. Your folks don't like me much as it is, and this way they'll forbid us from being friends altogether." "And how am I supposed to go in one felt boot?" At that moment, 12-year-old Michael surprisingly resembled a small, helpless child. For a couple of minutes, he thought it over. In the end, he took off his boots and gave them to his friend, wrapped his own foot in a scarf, and put Michael's wet felt boot on Alex. In the evening, after drying their clothes as best they could, Michael returned home. Alex's aunt guessed from the muddy tracks in the hallway that the boys had gotten into trouble, but she didn't scold them. She generally took little interest in her nephew, believing that this way he would become independent faster, and Michael came down with severe pneumonia, but never admitted what caused it. This was one of their many shared secrets. His parents were never able to get the truth out of him. About the missing felt boot, Alex lied. "We tried to dry it on the stove, got carried away playing, didn't notice it burned up." The story was ridiculous, but Michael's parents had to believe it. The aunt who had taken guardianship tried to clothe and shoe the boy, but she had no time to care for his upbringing, education, or moral character. Even the influence of good friends didn't help. At first, he simply stopped saying where he was going and with whom. Then he started staying overnight at friends' places. To all her remarks, he answered the same thing. "You're not my mother." The boy committed his first theft at 15. Michael was diligently preparing to enter military school at this time. The second theft turned into an assault on a guard, and Alex, with his so-called friends, was sent to a correctional facility for minors. Although he himself did not participate in the assault, the others dragged him into it, and he considered backing out cowardly. The friendship that began in the sandbox and went through many trials did not break off but moved into another dimension, that of memories and rare letters. Michael continued to be interested in his friend's life and share his own. Despite the fact that some letters came from military school and others from prison, the guys still found common ground. Perhaps this is the charm of youth, the ability to close your eyes to the secondary and see only the good in people. Michael's parents were wary of his association with a guy of questionable reputation, but had long given their son the right to choose his own friends. Michael would later give the same freedom of choice to his own children and would not regret it. A person either learns to take responsibility or shifts it onto others, then blaming everyone around for their failed life. After military school, Michael entered a military institute, then quickly rose through the ranks. He got married, and they had twins, a son and a daughter. Life settled into a calm rhythm. News from his old friend came less and less often until it stopped altogether. In his last letters, Alex wrote little about himself, only once casually mentioning that he was lucky enough to meet a real angel. He didn't go into detail himself, and Michael decided not to pry. Through acquaintances, Michael learned more than once that Alex was alive but doing time again. There were many such sentences in his life. It seemed he had become so accustomed to the prison routine that freedom no longer beckoned. He didn't know how to settle down, how to earn a living, or even if there was any point in changing. There, behind bars, everything was familiar and clear. By that time, Michael's parents had passed away, and the aunt who had taken Alex under guardianship didn't live long either. Only old acquaintances remained in his hometown, so Michael rarely visited. He considered selling the apartment several times, but there were no buyers. Renting it out was risky, there was no one to look after it, and it was easy to run into dishonest tenants. However, unexpectedly, the class prefect decided to gather former classmates, and it just so happened that Michael had a short leave at this time. At a family meeting, they decided to give the head of the family a couple of days off from worries and send him back home. At the same time, he planned to visit his parents' graves and look in on his former class teacher. Catherine didn't go with her husband, as she had urgent business at the shop. September 1st was approaching, and the demand for flowers was sharply increasing. Popular items needed to be ordered. At the station, transferring to the commuter train, Michael noticed an elderly man who struggled to get into the carriage and sat by the window. Something about his appearance seemed strangely familiar. Michael sat so he could see him without attracting attention. The old man seemed to look significantly older than his years. Michael himself was barely 40, the prime of life, as his wife said. They went to the gym together, loved outdoor activities. Their healthy lifestyle and warmth in the family had a beneficial effect on their appearance. Even among colleagues, Michael looked younger than many. Most military men, having reached high ranks, stopped taking care of themselves, gained weight, and looked awkward sweating during exercises. Michael always maintained excellent physical shape, easily completing forced marches. Catherine also often attracted men's eyes with her toned figure and impeccable appearance. Her husband didn't make scenes. On the contrary, he was proud that his wife was a dream and ideal for many. Their children were often told that their parents looked like an older brother and sister. The man Michael was watching closely looked to be over 60. Gray hair, sunken, stubbled cheeks, a hunched back, and a terrible cough. That's what gave away his age. There were moments when he almost choked trying to cough. Every half hour, he went out to the vestibule, took a drag, held his breath for a long time, releasing clouds of acrid smoke. Michael, who had disliked the smell of tobacco and alcohol since childhood, flinched each time. His healthy lifestyle was instilled in him by his father, who never smoked a cigarette or touched alcohol in his life, while remaining a model of integrity. Apparently, this man had less luck in life, if I found solace in harmful habits that destroyed his health. The strangest thing was that Michael, who had a phenomenal memory for faces, couldn't place this man at all. He was absolutely sure he had never seen him before, but something about his appearance was subtly familiar. The man returned from the vestibule, and their eyes met. Surprisingly, his eyes were young, though surrounded by a deep network of wrinkles. It seemed the thought that Michael was familiar struck him too, but his memory or Michael's appearance must have been better. A sincere joy lit up his face, and he impulsively stepped forward. Then, as if remembering something, his face sharply changed. He turned around and quickly walked back to the vestibule, and from there, to the next carriage. For a few seconds, Michael stood frozen, and then almost ran after the man, not quite believing his eyes. Alex! It was Alex. His childhood friend, the daredevil, the hooligan, and the brawler. Alex, who saved him when Michael fell through the ice. Alex, who couldn't live in a state orphanage and then spent most of his life in prisons. Prematurely aged, hunched, emaciated, and sick. But it was him. Michael had no doubt. Despite his completely changed appearance, he recognized his old friend's gaze, direct, slightly impudent. Michael practically ran through the next two carriages, scanning the passengers as he went. At this time, the conductor announced a stop, and Michael saw through the window that Alex had gotten off the train and was walking quickly towards the village. It was still about half an hour's ride to his hometown, but the man couldn't miss the chance to talk to his friend. So, without hesitation, he jumped off the step and ran after the receding figure. "Alex, I'll stop." Michael saw that his friend quickened his pace upon hearing his name. Fortunately, healthy, physically active Michael ran fast, and within a couple of minutes he caught up with his friend, stopping in front of him, blocking his path. "Al, you recognize me too. Why did you run away?" "Man, go on. I don't know you," Alex said, trying to walk around Michael. The smoke-filled hoarse voice resembled Alex's, but Michael had doubts. Had he made a mistake? Maybe he wanted so badly to believe he would meet his old friend that he mistook a stranger who only looked like Alex from a distance. Less confidently now, he addressed the man again. "Al, come on. I saw how happy you were back in the carriage. You couldn't not recognize me. Are you offended that I didn't write? But it's not my fault I didn't know your address. I wrote as much as I could, then I tried to find out where you were. I've been living in the same place for many years. Are you offended by that?" "Man, I'm not a woman to be offended. You've mistaken me for someone else." The man began to look around as if fearing they would be overheard, then said more quietly, "Michael, don't. You shouldn't be seen near me. Go away. Why do you need problems?" Michael barely restrained himself from rushing to hug his old friend, despite his warnings. "Al, you old devil, thank God you're alive. I thought I was losing my mind. How are you?" "Pretend you didn't hear the questions. Keep looking around," the man said. "Go to the station. The next train is in an hour. You won't get anywhere else from here." "To your parents?" "No parents, haven't for 5 years. Too bad, they were good people." "And you're going to see whom?" "Them to the grave. Decided to show up for the class reunion. I'll be home if anything. Come over in the evening." "I'll stop by." With these words, Alex walked on with a quick step, as much as his limp allowed, and Michael returned to the station. What had happened seemed like a dream or an incredible coincidence. It was during this rare visit home that he met the man whom fate had separated him from many years ago. School years flashed through his memory, their friendship with this brave, desperate, sometimes reckless guy. How many things he came up with. How many times they got into scrapes. How many times Michael brought him home, fed the hungry wolf cub, and he tried to take the best pieces for his sisters. Yes, Alex's life was difficult even in his youth, and it seemed to have battered him considerably since. He looked like a real old man. Michael remembered his 70-year-old father shortly before his death. Alex looked significantly older now. Waiting for the next commuter train, he reached his hometown, and the first thing he did was go to the store. If his friend was coming over in the evening, he needed to be properly welcomed, just like back in their childhood. He remembered the meeting with his classmates, but decided it could wait. Alex was more important. Besides, his behavior worried him. Calling the class prefect, he warned her that he wouldn't be able to come. Unexpected, important matters had come up. The woman was visibly disappointed. It seemed the whole meeting had been organized for him. Michael even remembered that she had shown him attention in school. She was an exemplary girl, matured early, and he was clueless about relationships then, with only a military career on his mind. Although, when he met Catherine, he decided that she was the one who would become his wife. In the evening, there was a quiet knock on the door, and almost immediately it opened and Alex walked in. "Still haven't learned to lock your doors, just like your parents?" Alex smiled, and for a moment he was again as Michael remembered him, and they hadn't seen each other for almost a quarter of a century. "Yeah, it's a habit. My wife scolds me constantly, less now, she's used to it. Been married a long time. Tell me about yourself." "I will. Come on in. I've set the table for our unexpected meeting. Remember, you always tried to feed me? Couldn't stand that I was thin and small and you were big, even though you were younger?" Alex smiled again, remembering their carefree childhood. "I remember. It's strange who I took after. My parents were thin, but I grew like a weed. Only at military school did I discipline myself, eat less, exercise more. By the institute, I was fit. My children are thin too. Guess I must have taken after the neighbor. Remember there was a fat old man on our playground?" "Your parents would have a fit if they heard you. You always blurt things out without thinking." The friends spent half the evening reminiscing and talking. Michael noticed that Alex first pounced on the bottle, which Michael, a non-drinker himself, had bought symbolically. Under the influence of alcohol, Alex became more relaxed, even a bit coarse, although he tried to control himself. At first, he evaded questions about his life or answered vaguely. After drinking, his tongue loosened and he told Michael a sad story. "Listen to this. You have a wife, kids, a career, and I have nothing to tell. Only how I changed to prisons and committed crimes. The only thing I'm proud of is I never harmed a living soul, didn't even touch animals. And the thefts? Who among us didn't commit them? Not everyone got caught. You know about my first sentences when I was young out of foolishness. It was hard, scary in prison then. I wanted freedom to my friends, to adventures, to fun. Only that fun led me back behind bars again. And life there isn't sweet. I won't tell you everything, no need. Only once a cellmate got a letter from his sister, and there was her photo in it. She was 22, I was 25. You wouldn't believe how many girls I had, but this one just pierced my heart. I asked permission to write, and you won't believe it, she answered. We started writing. I even started behaving perfectly, eager to get out to her. I got out, came to see her, but her parents kicked me out. They didn't know about the letters. I wore out their doorstep for a month, persuading, convincing. I got a job to prove I'd changed. But they wouldn't budge. Anyway, I backed off a bit, decided to give them time. I started living normally. That was probably the best year of my life. I got a job as a loader, had money. I spent it all on her, bought gifts. She refused to take them, actually, but I had the motivation to work, to live normally. Her parents only lowered their guard after 6 months, and we started meeting secretly, but all secrets come out. Mary got pregnant. Her parents found out. Couldn't terminate, it was too late, her health was poor. Anyway, they reported me to the police and I went back to the zone. And Mary gave birth to a daughter soon after. So you're a father too. Congratulations. Nothing to congratulate about. Never seen my daughter. She'll be 15 soon. She doesn't even know my name or who I am. Mary's parents strictly forbade her from telling the girl anything about me. What about Mary's brother? Didn't you become friends with him in prison? Friends? Yeah, right. As soon as he found out I was planning to see her after prison, he ambushed me with his buddies and marked me. Who needs a relative like that? She's smart, beautiful, graduated from university. The fact that she answered my letter back then was a miracle. Anyway, my daughter grew up without me, and I never managed to fix my life. I just kept bouncing between zones. Until one day, I got a letter from Mary. She wrote that she was very sick. I lost it, honestly. 5 years left on my sentence, and the doctors gave her less than a year. Do you understand? My Mary, my beloved. I never loved anyone else. There was no one after her. They all seemed the same, empty. Anyway, I ran away. Ran away to make it in time to see Mary. That's why I got scared when I saw you. They don't remember me here, and if they did, they probably wouldn't recognize me. Life has been hard. But it's okay. At least I'll live the last years in freedom. If they look for me, I won't surrender alive. I thought I'd lie low, then decide how to live. After that, I went straight to Mary's. She lived not far from here. I made it. Michael saw how difficult the story was for Alex to tell. I made it. I went to the hospital to see her for a whole week. Her parents didn't forbid it, they were old and I wouldn't have hurt her. But they wouldn't let me near my daughter. They only let me see her from a distance. And they didn't tell her who I was. Mary passed away, yes, burned out like a candle. And soon after, both her parents did too. Her mother only survived her by a week. Her heart gave out, her father by 2. And who is your daughter with now? That's just it, friend. My daughter's left alone. She's facing a children's home. Help me, I'm asking as a friend. How can I help? I'm nobody to her. Take her under guardianship. Come up with something. Your parents, remember, they bailed me out. They didn't abandon me. Well, they found relatives. Does your daughter have anyone besides you and the uncle? I can't. And the uncle drinks. Ever since he got out, he couldn't live normally. They won't give him the child. I can look for relatives who will take guardianship. Friend, I'll be indebted to you for the rest of my life. Ask for anything. Just don't let her end up in a children's home. The rest of the evening, the men talked about the children and how to help the girl. Alex, weakened and exhausted, quickly got drunk and fell asleep. But Michael stayed awake for a long time, thinking about the day. Besides the issue with the girl, he had to figure out how to tell his wife and children everything, how they would react, if they would understand, if they would judge him for having such a friend. In the end, he decided it was better for them not to know. He could make inquiries without their knowledge. But he needed to act fast. In the morning, he called everyone who could help. Different options were offered, even taking the girl under guardianship himself. This option seemed the most sensible. A 15-year-old girl was almost an adult. In a couple of years, she would be independent. He and his wife would look after her, introduce her to her father. Michael decided to pursue this direction. He didn't voice his plans to Alex. He promised to help, left him some money, and allowed him to live in his parents' apartment. It was empty anyway. As for himself, it was time to go home. So, how was the class reunion? Catherine met him as if he had been away not for a couple of days, but for a year. Oh, it was fine. Everyone's gotten old, put on weight, become uninteresting. No one to talk to, Michael lied. The feeling was disgusting. He wasn't lying to his wife, he just wasn't telling her, he thought. Why lie to someone so close? No one at all. What about your friend you told me about, Alex, I think? We didn't go to school with him, he's older than me. Didn't you see him either? No, Michael lied again. His wife was surprised that her husband returned thoughtful, quiet, and taciturn. He often went out to the stairwell to talk on the phone, constantly receiving messages. He answered all questions monosyllabically. Like any woman, she decided that he had met an old flame on the trip. Feelings had rekindled, and that's why he was tormented. She didn't want to think about the fact that he had left more than 25 years ago and hardly ever came back. Finding what seemed to her the most obvious reason, she didn't consider others. And things with the guardianship were going well. Michael managed to arrange a postponement of sending the girl to the children's home, but he needed to come to the guardianship office urgently and bring documents. He told Catherine he was going on a business trip. However, she found train tickets to the same city he had recently gone to for the reunion. The puzzle pieces fit together, and the woman became completely convinced. Her husband had someone else. And the next day, she saw him at the store. He was buying warm teenage clothes. For whom? Their daughter's size was bigger. It turned out he not only had an old love, but also a child. Such betrayal was unbearable. Her first impulse was to go up and find out. Later, she would regret many times that she didn't, saving herself from suffering. But that would be later. For now, she said nothing, returned home, and waited for her husband to explain. However, patience and humility had never been her strong suits. She decided to find out everything herself. Following her husband, she noted the train number and destination. She bought a ticket for the same train. To be honest, she regretted giving in to the impulse as soon as she was in the stairwell, but it was too late to turn back. She called the children, warning them that she and their father would be away for a couple of days. Her perceptive son understood from his mother's voice that something was wrong. Mom, is everything okay? You never travel without us. Dad has a business trip, and I decided to go with him so I wouldn't be bored. I have some time off accumulated. Her son pretended to believe her, but the explanation worried him even more. Michael, unaware that his poor cover story and his wife's imagination were threatening their family, anxiously pondered his next steps. The best solution would have been for Alex to turn himself in and then for Michael to proceed with the adoption. But Alex categorically refused to return to prison. Michael didn't press him, deciding to return to it later. It never occurred to him then how drastically his life would change. For now, he was simply going to meet the girl, his friend's daughter, who didn't even know who her father was. The grandfather and grandmother, who had reluctantly allowed Alex to spend his last week with Mary, strictly forbade him from seeing his daughter. The girl was brought to her mother in such a way that she would not cross paths with her father. Michael used all his acquaintances and connections. The girl was old enough, and he was allowed to arrange guardianship, but she could still end up in a children's home. All her property would pass to her at 18. Currently, she was studying, and social workers were looking after her. As he was informed, the girl was independent, quiet, modest, like her mother and her parents, explained the acquaintance who was helping with the documents. "And do you know who the father is?" "I do, an old friend of mine. He wrote and asked for help." "And why doesn't he arrange it himself?" "He's in prison." Michael didn't lie about his identity, but didn't say Alex had escaped. "Wonderful, Michael. Where did such a friend come from in your crystal-clear biography?" "We don't choose friends in childhood, we just become friends. And then such connections appear that you can't break. Besides, I owe him my life. Would I really refuse such a request?" "Oh, that honesty and integrity of yours will backfire someday. What did your wife say?" "She's not against it. She doesn't know," Michael admitted honestly. "And frankly, I have no idea how to tell her everything." "Michael, are you serious? You're taking guardianship of an adult girl who doesn't know you or her father, has lost all her relatives, and you haven't even talked to your wife and children. Where will you bring her? Where will she live? What about clothes? School? Connections are good, but I can't cover for you indefinitely. My good advice, talk to your wife, tell her everything. Otherwise, you risk changing your life drastically, and it's not certain it will be for the better." The acquaintance helping with the documents was the same class prefect. Communication with her was burdensome. She transparently hinted at a close relationship. Her concern for his family didn't seem sincere, but there was common sense in her words. Secrets from his wife could destroy their perfect marriage. After the conversation, Michael genuinely wanted to talk to his wife, but in the evening, Alex called to ask about things. During the conversation, he coughed terribly. Michael didn't like the cough. He asked directly about his health. "It's bad, Michael. That's why I bolted. The doctor there gave me a couple of months, and that's where I also learned about Mary's illness. Everything fit together. In short, I'll be joining Mary soon. Thank God I met you then. Through fire and water. Now I can die in peace knowing you won't abandon my daughter." After these words, Alex coughed hard again, and Michael understood. He needed to go to his friend urgently, otherwise he wouldn't make it in time. Alex forbade him from contacting doctors. Michael arrived a couple of days later. He didn't tell his wife. Just then, his acquaintance informed him that the guardianship documents were ready, and he could pick up the girl. Only she didn't have warm clothes. She had grown over the summer. The next day, Michael bought everything necessary and set off for his hometown. He didn't know then that his wife was on the same train and saw the situation differently. In the evening, he and Alex discussed what to do next. "Al, have you seen your daughter? Talked to her?" "No, and it's not worth it. Here's what I came up with. Let's tell her you're her father." "Yeah, and my family will kick me out. And no one will believe it. I lived far away when she was born. Finished school, first assignment. The kids were in kindergarten. No one will believe I could have been cheating on my wife then. And I don't want to bring a child into the family and start with a lie. It's better to say I'm a very distant relative. It's also a lie, but it doesn't threaten the family. We'll figure something out." "No, we won't figure anything out ourselves. I'll pick her up tomorrow, bring her here. You'll talk to her and tell her everything yourself." "No." "Why?" Michael genuinely didn't understand. After all, he loved her mother, and he would have loved her too, but circumstances prevented it. "Because, look at yourself and look at me. What kind of father would you want? A handsome, fit officer or a sick, dying convict? Silent? That's the point, and I don't want her to get a father like that." "Al, it would never occur to me to be ashamed of my parents." "That's because you got parents like that. But I was ashamed since childhood. Always drunk, dirty, abandoning us. At least I lived with my aunt, but I still went down the wrong path. And don't even mention my sisters. They couldn't make anything of themselves. Michael didn't ask about his sisters again. He barely remembered them. The girls were no more than 5 when they were taken to the children's home, and they never returned home. Alex visited them a few times, but always came back looking utterly miserable. Life in the children's home wasn't sweet, and for 2 little girls, even less so. Al, she didn't have any father. They told me she's quiet, modest. Tell her the truth, don't hide it. It will be easier for you. At that moment, there was a knock, and both jumped up as if on command. 2 hours earlier, Catherine, following her husband, got off the train. Not knowing where he was going, she decided not to lose sight of him. He transferred to a commuter train, and she settled in behind him, guessing he was going back home. She'd never been to her in-laws' place and was afraid of getting lost. Her husband seemed lost in thought, paying no attention. A couple of times he almost noticed her, his gaze sliding over her indifferently. He seemed to have dimmed in a few days, turning from cheerful to gloomy. Seeing her husband enter the building again, then the apartment on the 2nd floor, Catherine decided to sit on a bench, think. Calm down, collect her thoughts, decide how to start the conversation, explain her presence. If he was with a woman there, then so be it, they would divorce. She loved her husband but would not agree to share him with anyone. The woman never thought that climbing a couple of a dozen steps would be so difficult. Her legs wouldn't obey, her hands were icy, her temples were pounding. Gathering her strength, she raised her hand and knocked. Muffled voices were heard from the apartment, falling silent after the knock. Alex, it's me. Michael and Alex jumped up as if on command, exchanged silent glances trying to understand who could be knocking on an apartment that had been empty for many years. Are you expecting someone? Michael asked quietly. Are you crazy? I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I covered my tracks for several months, changed trains. I traveled so they wouldn't track me. I didn't show my face outside the apartment. Maybe someone for you, that class prefect of yours, or neighbors. Probably, although I haven't talked to anyone and asked them to call. You hide, I'll open it. If they're after me, I'll jump from the balcony. Where are you going? You can barely walk. Sit down, don't move. If it were the police, they wouldn't knock. Alex, of course, decided they had come for him. Rushing to the balcony, he started calculating if he could run after jumping from the 2nd floor. Michael, realizing what his friend was doing, silently grabbed him and shoved him into his parents' bedroom. It locked from the inside and the windows faced the courtyard. Sit still. Don't do anything stupid. Maybe a neighbor saw something. I'm not going back to the zone, Michael. Better they take me down during arrest, but I'm not going back there. Sit still. Maybe you'll get lucky. Michael quietly closed the door and went to the entrance door. The peephole didn't allow him to see clearly, but it was obvious it wasn't the police and not for Alex. How great was his surprise when, opening the door, he saw Catherine, his wife, on the threshold, who had lied about a business trip yesterday and from whom he had been hiding for several days, that another child would appear in their home. Catherine, what are you doing here? Same question to you. Did you also go on a business trip? I did go. Seeing his wife's eyes, Michael understood that he couldn't and didn't want to lie anymore. Come in, I'll tell you everything now, and then you decide for yourself. Letting his wife in and closing the door, he went to the room and knocked on the bedroom door. Al, come out, it's for me. Al, yes, he's my childhood friend, I told you about him, Michael said, pointing to his friend coming out. It was noticeable that Catherine was surprised by the friend's appearance. You said he was older than you, but I didn't think he was old enough to be your father. Hello, Catherine. I'm 2 years older. Life has just been hard. Catherine, sit down. I'll tell you everything now. I'll make some tea. You must be cold. Only then did Catherine notice that she was shivering. Her hands hadn't warmed up. She hadn't expected to sit in the cold for half an hour. For the next hour, Michael and Alex took turns recounting the circumstances that had brought them together today. Catherine listened, unable to believe her ears. On one hand, she was glad her fears about a mistress were unfounded. On the other, she was surprised that her husband had made such a decision without her knowledge. She also honestly shared her own fears. Now, knowing the reason, she felt awkward about her doubts. So, my dear, we have an important decision to make. to take another child into our family. You've already made that decision. We need to decide how to tell the girl who we are and who her father is. By the way, you never once called her by name." "And I didn't know it," Alex said. "They forbade mentioning it so as not to upset Mary, and she could barely speak because of the medication. She hardly recognized me." "I know. They gave me the information. I wanted to introduce you tomorrow. Well, the girl's name is Alexandra." A whole spectrum of emotions was reflected in Alex's eyes. It had been a long time since Michael had seen men cry. Stern military men, his friends, his father, they considered tears a disgrace. Alex looked at his friend with eyes full of tears and couldn't hold them back. Mary, his beloved, his only one, had named their daughter after him. Alex couldn't control his emotions for a long time. Catherine had to look for a sedative in her purse, under which he quickly fell asleep, and she and her husband had a long conversation ahead of them. Catherine didn't want arguments or shouting. She understood her husband couldn't have acted otherwise, but she was offended by his secrecy. He had been silent for so many days, deciding, figuring things out, although he had never allowed himself secrets before, except for work, which Catherine didn't know about and wasn't interested in. Otherwise, there were no secrets. Over their many years of marriage, they had managed to maintain a wonderful relationship. They met when he was a military cadet. Handsome, tall, athletic. Many girls looked at him, but he chose Catherine. She studied at a neighboring school. Girls would go to discos to meet cadets. But she wasn't interested in military men and didn't consider herself old enough for dates. Michael noticed her walking along the embankment with her friends. He singled her out for her modest appearance. Only she had long hair and a modest dress, but approaching her proved difficult. He even volunteered to paint red stripes on the Krylov Monument, a graduation tradition. This responsible task was entrusted to the wildest cadets. Michael was proper, he wasn't allowed, but he wanted to surprise the girl he liked. After military school, he entered a military institute, and she gathered her courage and went to study in the same city. Her parents supported her decision to go to a pedagogical college after the 9th grade, and then to a university near his institute. They got married in their second year. Everyone said early marriages fall apart, but they loved each other and paid no attention. A year later, twins were born. That's when Catherine realized how good her choice was. Despite his service-armed studies, her husband let his wife sleep, got up with the children, changed diapers. He learned to prepare formula half asleep. Maternity leave didn't become a trial, but strengthened their union. Catherine studied by correspondence, planned to send the children to kindergarten, and go back to work. Michael suggested a job she would enjoy. His career involved transfers. He managed to get a good assignment not far from the capital. With her teaching degree, Catherine initially worked at a school but couldn't handle the workload, lack of time, and complaints. That's where her hobby courses came in handy. She found herself in floristry. She started a flower garden, learned to arrange bouquets, wrap gifts, and opened a shop 2 years later. Michael was lucky to stay in one place. The business grew. She opened 2 more shops and expanded her range. At first, her husband helped, then the children. By 40, Catherine, to the envy of her friends, looked great. A beloved husband, wonderful children. Her son followed in his father's footsteps. Her daughter went into design. Life seemed perfect. Friends were envious. Subordinates praised her. Children delighted her with their successes. And now their marriage was facing a test. She was glad her fears about fidelity were unfounded, but disconcerted that he was ready to change their lives so drastically without her knowledge. She didn't understand how to live on. Young Alexandra was a stranger, if not for her husband. Now they were taking responsibility for another child with her own character, who had lost everyone. Catherine also believed the girl had the right to know her father. They decided to try to persuade Alex again tomorrow. The financial question was not an issue. The adult children were partially independent. Catherine hadn't yet thought about how they would react to the new family member. Michael didn't make excuses. "My dear, I couldn't do otherwise. He has no one but me. The girl has no one either. I didn't tell you because I didn't understand what I was getting into myself. Haven't you understood in so many years of marriage that I'm with you in any situation? But it's not just about us. It's about a girl who doesn't know us, about our children who will have to accept a stranger. Not to mention that Alexandra might be against moving. She's an adult, she decides for herself. Is she ready for a new family?" The acquaintance who helped with the documents said the girl is in shock but not against moving. As I understand it, she's withdrawn, quiet. It's unknown if that's good or bad. It's hard to reach an agreement with quiet people. We'll manage, I'm sure. You have no idea how often I thank fate for such a wife. You chose me yourself, Catherine smiled. It's late, we need to sleep. Tomorrow is a difficult day, travel. By the way, what about Alex? He's very sick, he needs a hospital. The police are looking for him, we can't call an ambulance. Wanted posters are out, repeat offender, criminal, and he's a sick, life-beaten wretch who doesn't have much time left. I don't know what to do. I'm not a child to be worried about. Alex entered unexpectedly, as if he had been standing behind the door. Nevertheless, Catherine is right. You need help. You've already helped me. You're not obligated anymore. You paid me back a long time ago for pulling you out back then. And you didn't owe me anything. You would have gone in too. So tomorrow we'll say goodbye. I'll be there. I'll write. If not, don't think ill of me. Michael and Catherine exchanged glances, understanding that arguing was useless. He decided his own fate, but Michael's heart was uneasy. Al, are you sure you shouldn't tell her? You could say you're sick and can't take her yourself. No, I don't want to. Lie. Better not to say anything. It was clear the man was hesitating, but Michael didn't press. The decision was his. The next morning, leaving Alex, Michael and Catherine went to the children's home for Alexandra. She had been there for a few days while the documents were being processed. A short, thin girl quietly entered the room. She looked about 10 or 12, not like a 15-year-old teenager. Long, light brown hair and a braid. Michael immediately recognized his friend's features. The eyes, the build, the hair color. Only Alex's gaze was cheerful, impudent, while Alexandra's was sad, thoughtful. She quietly said hello, asked if she could go home to get her things. Apparently, she had been told about the move. She hardly looked up. The psychologist said this was the beginning. The realization of loss would come later, and her behavior was unpredictable. Having settled the formalities, the couple ordered a taxi to take Alexandra home. The departure was in the evening. Catherine suggested Alexandra visit her friends. I don't have friends, the girl said quietly. No one to say goodbye to. No one at all. I had some in elementary school, but then Grandma enrolled me in music, art, ballet, with tutors. There was no time left for friends. They decided it wasn't interesting to be friends with me. What a good girl you are. You dance, play, study. Yes, I guess, the girl said in a colorless voice. It seemed the activities didn't make her happy. She felt no pride. At home, she packed photos, her personal belongings, her mother's, her grandparents' clothes. Catherine was surprised that the girl walked past a shelf with medals, cups, and certificates several times without looking, as if they were junk. Alexandra, if it doesn't all fit, we'll come back for the rest soon. I know the way. I'll take you. It's not necessary. I'll take what I need. She paused. I've never been called anything but Alexandra. If you like it, I'll call you Alexandra. You didn't like me calling you Alexandra? I don't know. It's unusual. Do you have children? The girl showed interest for the first time. Yes, adult son and daughter, twins. They're 20. My son is in the military like his father and grandfather. My daughter is in design. She loved to draw, like you. She went to art school, had talent from an early age. I didn't have talent. My grandfather tried to burden me like a workhorse. I didn't like to draw or dance. I don't like showing off. I wanted to sit quietly in a corner. I always asked Mom to have a little brother or sister. How wonderful it is to have a brother or sister from birth. You're born with your best friend right away. But I wouldn't say they were best friends from birth, Catherine laughed. Rather, they were born with a partner in mischief and a partner in fights. That's what I meant. I wanted a big family. Mom was an only child, and I'm her only child. And do you know anything about your father? Catherine asked cautiously. Yes, a little. Mom told me secretly from Grandpa and Grandma that he was good. He just got into bad circumstances. He loved her, and she believed he loved me too, even though he never saw me. Anything else? Only that his name is also Alexander. Would you like to meet him? Of course. To be honest, I hoped your husband was my father until I learned his name. At that moment, Michael entered. Seeing him, the girl returned to her things. Alexandra, we'll leave you. We won't bother you. Get ready, Catherine said, took her husband's arm and led him to the kitchen, closing the door. Michael, she knows. Both about her father and his name. You came at the wrong time. Maybe she told me something else. The girl is withdrawn. We can't hide that her father is alive nearby. What if he passes away and she doesn't get to see him? I completely agree, but what about Alex? Listen, we're going to raise her. We need to think about what's best for her. As a guardian, I decided to introduce her to her father. But since my general decided, what can I argue about? Michael smiled, hugging his wife. An hour later, they were going up the stairs to Michael's parents' apartment. A taxi with suitcases was waiting by the entrance. Catherine helped Alexandra pack everything that would help her adapt. The girl didn't ask why they stopped. It seemed she was under the effect of a sedative. The psychologist explained that her psyche had shut down from the world to cope with the loss. Opening it up would take a long time and require care. Approaching the door, Michael opened it, asked Catherine and Alexandra to come in later. Closing the door, he was surprised by the silence. Walking into the kitchen, then the room, he found Alex sleeping face to the wall. Al, why are you sleeping during the day? Michael said quietly, gently touching his friend's shoulder. He didn't respond. Michael shook him harder, tried to turn him over. With difficulty. His friend seemed to have curled up. At that moment, Michael understood. Taking his hand, he felt for a pulse without much hope. From the cold hand, it became clear. His friend had quietly passed away in his sleep. A few hours ago, he had already become stiff. He couldn't let his wife and Alexandra see this, so he quickly went out to the landing. From her husband's look, Catherine understood. Something bad had happened. Meeting her eyes, Michael shook his head, explaining without words. Alexandra, I told you this is Michael's parents' apartment. He just came in to get some documents. Go down to the car, I'll catch up. Even a child wouldn't believe the ridiculous explanation, but Catherine was incapable of more. When the girl slammed the door, Catherine turned to her husband. Am I going with her alone? Are you staying for the funeral? Probably. I don't even know what to do about him being wanted. God forbid they'll arrest me for harboring a fugitive. Say you came to check the apartment and found him. I don't know what else to say. Try to tell them as little as possible, Catherine. He left this morning. Michael felt a lump rising in his throat. Loved ones were leaving and he couldn't do anything about it. Perhaps everyone's life reaches a point with a series of losses that you can't get used to. Hold on. You need to compose yourself, then you can let your feelings out. We're going to the station. Call me when you can. Going downstairs, she found Alexandra by the car. Can I ask you something? Of course, my dear, anything. Promise not to lie to me. I promise, Catherine blurted out before she thought. Why did we come here? Just tell me the truth. Catherine understood she couldn't invent another lie. Your father lived in this apartment for the last few days. He lived here until this morning. He passed away. Please accept my condolences. We wanted to introduce you, but we didn't make it in time. For a few minutes, the girl was confused. Finally, she composed herself. I want to see him. I won't be scared. I need to see him just once to remember him. Sunshine, is it worth it? He's gone now. Are your parents alive? My mother is, yes. My father passed away a long time ago. Did you see him before he died? Of course. That's why I want to see him just once. Okay, let's go into the apartment. They entered quietly. Michael was calling the ambulance and the police. He froze with the phone, looking questioningly at his wife. It has to be done, she said. She took the girl's hand. Where is he? In the room. Not for long. The police will be here soon. You shouldn't be seen. I'll be quick. Don't worry. Just a look. Her courage only lasted long enough to step across the threshold and see the figure on the bed. Crying out, she turned to Catherine and buried her face in her shoulder. The woman hugged the weeping girl, quietly led her out of the room. She carefully took her to the car and helped her in. They drove to the station in silence. The girl stopped crying but wiped her tears with the edge of her collar. Boarding the train was quick. Catherine was glad it was late evening. Alexandra lay down and fell asleep. Catherine couldn't sleep. Besides thinking about the future, she was worried about her husband. He had to arrange the funeral and prove he wasn't involved with the escaped criminal. In the morning, the train arrived in the city that had become home for Catherine. They had lived here for a long time. Their children had grown up here. There was plenty of time before the holidays to tell the children about the new family member. Alexandra woke up early, didn't wake Catherine, and looked out the window. Finally, she spoke. "Catherine, is it a long ride?" "No, less than half an hour." "Catherine, why did you take me in? Who am I to you?" "Your father and my husband were friends since childhood. Alex asked us to look after you, and my husband decided to take you under guardianship. After 18, you'll be independent. You can decide for yourself." Catherine meant to convey the idea of independence, but Alexandra understood it differently. "So, you're going to put up with me for 3 years and that's it? I can go wherever I please?" "Go ahead, dear. You didn't understand. I meant that you'll become independent, self-sufficient, and we'll always support you. You can count on us, but live however you want. But until then, you'll put up with me and kick me out? I understand you're not thrilled about taking in God knows who, born of God knows whom. I saw my father. Mom said he was 3 years older. And that old man I saw yesterday, who was he? My father, or an old man who miraculously ended up in my husband's apartment? What about him? Was he homeless? In prison? What?" The woman was struck by the change. Quiet and taciturn yesterday, sharp and rude today. "Alexandra, I'm not sure I should tell you all this. A couple of days ago, like you, I knew nothing about your father or you. I thought my husband had a mistress, then I saw him buying clothes for you, and I decided you were his daughter. I bought a ticket and went. There I met him and your father. They explained everything. Honestly, I was in shock, but I understand my husband, he couldn't have done otherwise. So, we all have to accept it and live together. To conflict or cooperate, that's your decision. You're an adult. We'll provide you with a decent life, but communication depends on you." It seemed the direct answer quelled the rising anger, especially since Catherine had been warned that such a reaction was normal. It helps cope with pain. Catherine, as an adult, had to provide support. It was amazing how quickly a stranger could become close. Yesterday, she didn't want a strange child. Today, she felt sorry for the girl, couldn't leave her alone in this world. The woman gently took the girl's hand. "I know you're angry at everyone, at us, for fate being cruel. If you need to, be angry, let out your emotions. But don't nurture hatred towards us. We sincerely want to help. When you turn 18, you'll inherit property rights, you can move out. Until then, we need to learn to live together peacefully." "And you won't abandon me?" Her voice trembled. It seemed she was about to cry. "No, we won't, if it depends on us. Your parents didn't abandon you either. They left not by their own will." "Tell me about my father, please." "My dear, I can't. I know almost nothing. I can say he was very sick, that's why he looked like that. Michael will tell you more. They were friends since childhood. I remember he told me how your father saved his life." "Really? How? Tell me." "We've arrived. I'll tell you at home. You have school tomorrow." "I didn't think I'd go back there. Did your children study there?" "Yes. It's a good school, strong teachers. Our children got into their chosen universities without tutors. I had a good school too, but Grandpa and Grandma hired tons of tutors. They cared. They wanted you to have knowledge from childhood, not to turn out like your father. I once overheard their conversation. He said he would pay any money for tutors, put you in any schools, clubs, just so your father's genes wouldn't show. He wanted the best for you. It's just that adults, wanting what's best, sometimes go too far, not considering the child's wishes." They reached home by midday. Catherine called the shop, warned them she was taking the day off. In all their marriage, she had taken sudden days off only a couple of times. She loved her work and dedicated her time to it. Catherine decided to spend the day with Alexandra, help her adapt. Michael didn't call. She started to worry. She was afraid to call herself, afraid to hear bad news. In the evening, she decided to call the children, Inform them about the new family member. First, her son. It's easier with men. Her son's initial reaction was unexpected. Mom, are you sure? An adult girl with such trauma? What will come of it? You weren't cruel. We grew up this way thanks to your example. But we grew up with you and she didn't. She was raised strictly. What will happen when she feels you won't be strict? 15 is a difficult age, even when everything is calm, and she's lost her family. Her son voiced her hidden fears. She understood, she was afraid. She decided to be stricter at first so she wouldn't take advantage. Victoria, her daughter, supported her brother's concerns. She was more assertive, sometimes defended her brother, but here she agreed. The girl needed to be accustomed to freedom gradually, otherwise she would harm herself. Catherine was surprised that the children didn't object or ask questions. Apparently, they were used to their parents making well-considered decisions. Besides, Mom said it was Dad's decision. Arguing was useless. In the evening, Michael called. He sounded tired. After they left, he waited for the ambulance and police, reported that he had found an unknown man. The death was natural. The police showed no interest. After lunch, the investigator called and invited him in. Can you imagine? He invited me. Professional ethics have reached our police. They informed me that the man found was Alex. He escaped from prison. He came to the apartment, probably because he had nowhere else to go. Anyway, I took on the funeral. No one was surprised. I said we were friends in childhood. I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon. The police have no questions, no reason for an investigation, no grounds for problems. Thank God. I was so worried. How are things with you? Stephen called, shared his concerns. I called both of them. They accepted the decision easily but said to be stricter at first. I agree, even though it's not our method. They didn't get to use the advice. In the evening, Alexandra asked to go for a walk. Catherine offered to accompany her, but she refused. She was an adult. It wouldn't be for long, not far. I won't go far enough to get lost. I have a phone. I remember the address. Okay, but try to be back by 7. It's an early time, but you don't know the city. The area isn't the safest. Even though you're an adult, you look like a little girl. When I saw you, I thought you were no more than 12. Be careful. Do you want me to walk with you? No, I want to be alone. Okay, try to keep your phone on. The girl nodded and left. After 7, Catherine called. The phone was off. After half an hour of fruitless calls, she decided to look for her. It was getting dark. Passers-by hurried home, wrapping themselves against the wind. After checking around the building, squares, and courtyards, Catherine called her husband. He was supposed to be on the train. Michael, what happened? Alexandra is missing. She asked to go for a walk. We agreed on 7. Her phone is unreachable. It's 8:30. Phone is off. Should I go to the police? They won't even take your statement. I think this is her way of testing boundaries. What we were talking about. We can't let her manipulate us, otherwise we won't manage. I'll be there in the morning. We'll find her together if she doesn't come back. In the morning after Michael arrived, there was no news from Alexandra. They decided to go to the police. The girl didn't know the city and could be in trouble. Michael asked Catherine to wait outside while he spoke to the investigator. Listen, can you give me addresses of places where young people hang out? But you said the girl is quiet, modest? The girl was taken from a children's home yesterday. Before that, she grew up under total strictness. Understood. I'll look now. There are many such places. It would be good if she didn't end up there. Local delinquents quickly turn sheltered girls into homeless ones. Try to watch her better. Having received the printout, Michael and his wife decided to look themselves. They drove to several addresses. They realized how lucky they were with their own children. They had never worried so much. Active, but not reckless. They got into situations, but they never had to search for them in places like these. Michael waited for his wife to say that he had caused all this. Catherine, as always, was supportive. They had taken responsibility together. Blaming her husband was pointless. In one of the courtyards, on a bench, they found Alexandra sleeping. They had trouble waking her up. Surprisingly, there was no smell of alcohol. Later, she explained that she had just been walking for almost a day and fell asleep from exhaustion. She turned off her phone on purpose. She wanted to be alone to think. And you didn't think that we would worry? I did. I won't apologize. With these words, she turned to the window and was silent until they got home. At home, Michael decided to talk to her himself. Alexandra, Catherine said you asked about your father. Listen, I have never seen a more honest and just person, ready to go through fire and water for a friend. He was ready to go without food for days just to bring something tasty to his sisters. He pulled me out of the icy water even though he could have died himself. He was half my size. He had a difficult time, got mixed up with bad company, ended up in prison. Yes, your father was a criminal, but he knew how to admit his mistakes. You are definitely not like him in that. I don't see his honesty, openness, gratitude for kindness in you. Nothing of what I valued and loved him for. If you want to live with us, live by our rules. Call so we don't worry, keep your promises, obey, be respectful. I understand you're not thrilled about living with strangers. If it's difficult, I'll take you back to the children's home. 3 years, and you're free. Go wherever you want. But if you want to have a family, loved ones, support, love, learn to adapt. We didn't force our children to be obedient. They learned by example. Stephen and Victoria are not against you. Catherine and I are ready to give you attention, care. But if you're going to leave whenever you feel like it, not answer, not apologize. Don't unpack your things. We're going back. I'll give you an hour. Think about it. I'm not rushing you, not persuading you, but either you accept the conditions or you don't. With these words, he left and closed the door, not giving the girl a chance to speak. The hour dragged on agonizingly. They could hear her walking, opening, closing the suitcase, moving a chair. Catherine and Michael sat silently in the kitchen, exchanging glances. Finally, Catherine said, "Are you sure this is necessary? It's time for her to learn to make decisions. Before, adults did it. Some take many years, some grow up in a couple of weeks. Her father, it seemed, wasn't a child from childhood. He was responsible for his sisters. What happened to him while we didn't see him, I won't judge, but I remember him being older than his years. By the way, I found out what happened to his parents and sisters. When the children were taken away, the parents went on a drinking binge. The heating froze, they froze to death. I was about 12. The adults didn't tell me, and they didn't tell Alex the truth when he escaped. They lied that they had moved. And the sisters? They repeated their parents' fate. After the children's home, they found partners like themselves. Alex mentioned in passing that their lives didn't work out. Both are alive, leading dishonest lives. Both have children in children's homes. Alex has at least 3 cousins and a brother. How did you find out? The neighbor told me. She recognized me when I was explaining to the police how Alex could have ended up in the apartment. A cunning old woman. She immediately understood I was lying. She saw me visiting with him, bringing groceries, but she didn't turn him in. She told me everything. They live not far from here. We'll see what Alexandra decides. Maybe we'll tell her about the relatives. You don't have to. I heard everything. It turned out Alexandra had been standing behind the door for a long time. I don't want to live like my father's family. I'm ready to follow the conditions. Yours are softer than Grandpa's. Only Mom used to spoil me. Forgive me. I don't know what came over me. You owe me nothing. You could have left me in the children's home. 5 years passed. Alexandra graduated from school with honors, entered a pedagogical institute to study sociology and social work. She wanted to help children like her father, protect them from difficult circumstances, give them a chance to become normal. She kept her promise. Not a single problem. She studied, tried hard, obeyed, didn't talk back. Gradually, she became family. The older children accepted her warmly. Victoria became friends with her, helped her choose outfits. They went on vacation together. Stephen took a long time to accept her, was wary, waited for something to go wrong. Gradually, he thawed. It helped that he got married during his studies and had a son. "Stephen, you're a softie," his sister often teased, seeing him talk for hours about his child's abilities. "You just haven't been in my shoes. You'll have your own. You'll become a softie too, I assure you." "No way. I don't want to be stuck in diapers from a young age. I have a career, travel, but if I want a child to smear porridge on me, I'll use my nephew." In reality, the girl adored the baby, didn't spare money or time. In all these years, Michael and Catherine never regretted taking Alexandra in. After the children finished school and moved out, the house felt empty. Despite their beloved work, the need to care for someone was acutely felt. By the time Alexandra graduated from school and moved out, a grandson had appeared in their son's family whom the happy grandfather and grandmother often took in, giving the young couple a break. They remembered how difficult it was without help with twins during their student years. Alexandra couldn't bring herself to meet her father's relatives for several years. His two sisters showed no interest, but their children were happy to have normal relatives besides their parents. Alexandra tried to visit them, give gifts, and tell them about herself. She often recalled her first day in their family. Then she was given a choice: a quiet life with trust, respect, consideration for her interests, love and understanding, or a children's home. In the couple of weeks she spent in the children's home, she understood that she needed to leave there, not return. She chose the family and didn't regret it. Although she grew up in a family with a different way of life, she was able to adopt the values instilled by Michael and Catherine. When, several years later, I met a wonderful young man and decided to get married, the first thing I did was bring him to my parents so they could evaluate him from their perspective. Both Catherine and Michael liked the young man. Gradually, life returned to its usual course, becoming quiet and peaceful.